Okay, let's get this officially started. Welcome to another Consent Dojo. I'm Midori, and this is our monthly program to go into depth about consent. We're building our consent muscle, and here's what we're doing. I bring on some amazing, interesting people who have, well, particular focus on issues of consent coming in from all sorts of angles. So I've been doing this now for over 2 years, and it has been such a learning opportunity. Now, today, I am delighted to invite this wonderful sexuality educator, Luna Matatas. She's a sex and pleasure educator with over 15 years of experience teaching sex and empowerment workshops. She celebrates body confidence, self-adoration, and building shame-free pleasure in and out of the bedroom. She teaches a wide range of topics, including threesomes, BDSM, and sexual confidence. Luna created Peg the Patriarchy, registered trademark, and Meditate, Medicate, Masturbate, also registered trademark, brands as part of her sex positive and feminist merchandise. Her site is lunamatatas.com. So, well, I want you to picture something. So you're at the Met Gala, the big museum in New York, and there's all these glamorous people, like the who's who of politics and arts and entertainment with grand outfits that were custom designed by designers. By the way, I love the museum, but I'm not the sort of person that'll ever get invited to the Met Gala. Anyhow, so in walks in a supermodel, Cara Delevingne, I think I'm mispronouncing this, wearing a custom-made vest made by Dior. This is a Met Gala 2021. The theme of it is "In America, Lexicon of Fashion," which honestly is kind of stupid as a theme. I think they were kind of desperate. They should have called it "Holy fuck, we're in a pandemic, let's party." Should have been better. Anyhow, skinny, young, white, like really, really white, and wearing this custom outfit. And let me do a screen share because I want to show you what walked onto the red carpet. Okay, you see this now, right? And it says Peg the Patriarchy. Okay, sounds really cool. And, you know, brazen feminist sexuality comment about society, etc., etc. Good idea, you think, except think again, because I want to paint another picture for you, for which I'm going to bring in Luna. Luna, come on in and share us what's happening. Oh, let me spotlight you, hon. There we go. Oh, it's the two of us.
Yay.
Yay.
All right. Oh my gosh. First of all, I'm so fangirling that I get to be here with Midori. So this is amazing. I'm sure like so many people here, you've taught and opened up and given us your wisdom, your legendary wisdom about BDSM and all things femdoming. So thank you so much for having me here to talk about this.
This is such, well, I'll just say interesting situation. So
Yeah.
I picked up the picture, right? And would you care to tell us about what's happening in
Yes.
the image?
Absolutely, absolutely. So this image, so I was actually teaching a cock and ball torture webinar, and after the webinar, I went to Twitter to say, "Hey, my webinar was fun," and I had like 11,000 mentions, and I only had very few followers. And all of a sudden, I found that people were tagging me in this photo from one of the online magazines, The Cut, and I at first was I actually at first was happy. I was like, wow, they're using my thing, this is at the Met Gala. Like, how would I ever, as this, small sex educator business, it's hard enough for me to even advertise because of all the censorship that we have as sex educators. And this thing made it to the Met Gala. Then I followed the comments, and I read what was happening, and basically the font is exactly the same. And they removed the little star and stacked it a little bit differently. But this vest was designed by Dior, and Cara owned it as her own. So when asked about it, she said, "Oh yeah, I just came up with it because it's kind of like fuck the man, or fuck the man up the ass," like something very, very white feminist, kind of just like fuck the patriarchy, but with no systemic analysis. And so this was so tough for me because I was attributed nowhere. And so I went to Instagram and posted a picture of me wearing my shirt, and there we go, there's me and my strap-ons. And this photo was posted, I think, in like 2017. I coined the phrase in 2016, or 2015. It was trademarked in 2016. So this is not an unfamiliar photo on my social media channels. And basically I took it right away. I felt, oh my gosh, there's this, my baby is out in the world without me. And so there was this sense of violation immediately. And to have so much attention so quickly on something like this, I think the media really liked the angle of something different. This is not the first time that Cara Delevingne has stolen a phrase from a woman of color. She stole "the future is female." And we saw conversations kind of happening all over the place. So there was stuff around some people love the phrase, some people don't like the phrase. There was stuff around trademarks. There was stuff around the meaning and the message carried on someone like Cara Delevingne versus a queer sex educator of color who developed it with a particular message. So that's kind of what happened in a nutshell as it opened up. Yeah.
Yeah, that roller coaster of emotions just must have been gut churning.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a good word for it. Yeah,
yeah.
because I felt very helpless at first. I'm like, how am I going to fight Dior? I don't have a lawyer. I don't have a legal team. And I also felt, I understood the unwanted attention that also boosted me in ways that I couldn't get boosted in my regular kind of day-to-day life. And then there was all this hate. There was all this exposure to communities that I didn't have relationships to, and were misunderstanding. I had to stop Googling myself and Googling the things because there was so much coming at me. So yeah, gut churning is a perfect way to understand it.
Yeah, and it wasn't just that day, I assume. It carried on. Does it still carry on?
Oh my gosh, yes, it carried on pretty hardcore for about maybe like 10 days, and then the news cycle sort of changed. But
Right.
I
Yeah.
still have to pursue all kinds of trademark infringements. I have a part-time assistant that helps me out with that and submits all of the trademark stuff to platforms where people are selling, like Etsy or things like that.
I'm sorry. As another small business owner, I'm sure that's really what you want to spend your resources on, as well as
Right.
your mental and physical health. I'm sorry. And
Thank
so you
you.
all know that I am absolutely biased in this conversation because small business owner, person of color, uh, artist who's like just in essentially still fringe of society and tackling topics that are still stigmatized. Yeah, versus big corporation. Um, I'm going to repeat what's in the chat right now, in that if you have comments or questions, we welcome that. Before the ease of this conversation, if you could put it in Q&A or raise a hand. Some of you can't necessarily write into the Q&A. That'll be lovely. Um, I may be holding questions to get some more good information out of Luna. Um, okay, so let's go straight to the point here. What does this case have to do with consent, because a lot of times when people are thinking about consent, and we're both in the sex ed business, we humans, people, tend to think today of consent as applying specifically and directly to sex and or kink. And yet the whole point of Consent Dojo is to broaden this to consent as part of being human. So what does this have to do with consent? Bring it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I thought it was such an interesting part of the conversation that I think a lot of people forgot about when they were arguing about you like the phrase, you don't like the phrase, or who cares if a supermodel's wearing it, why is she worried about it? There's something inherent when we create something, whether we're artists or other types of creator, where there's an idea, there's a process, there might be particular values or intentions behind our art. And when we have other people get let's say inspired, inspiration's different than appropriation, but when people are inspired to then take that art and own it in some other way, so sometimes they change it, sometimes they use it directly, sometimes they're riffing off of it, there comes an issue of, well, did I want that? This was my creation, and do I want it to manifest and grow and transform in these ways and have someone profit off of them? So the difference kind of in our usual kind of sex consent conversations, I think, is also about this idea of who gets to benefit, who gets to be rewarded from the original artist idea. And then we think of all that consent stuff in the context of other types of social power and privilege. And so Kara being like you said, a very white, thin, powerful, rich person who has different access to resources and platforms than I do, and uses my message. I mean, the first thing that it did was it ruined all my search results. So you Googled Peg the Patriarchy and it was just Kara that came up. Once I started doing media interviews, then that bumped that down. So I won the internet around this. but there was this problem of someone just took something and then claimed it as their own. So there's the violation on the part of me as an artist, but then also me as a person. Like, there was no humanity in any of this. It would have been so easy for her to actually demonstrate feminist values and come to the artist and be like, hey, we want to put your thing on a vest. Like, we're just going to give you a shout out, forget even paying you. We'll just be like, hey, Luna Matatas created this, go learn about it from her. That would have been a feminist action. So without any kind of consent around that, it just ends up being another example of power over.
I remember in one of the interviews that you had said, queens elevate queens, and this did not happen. Oh, there's also a really good, folks who are watching, really great blog with references to various media in Luna's site. So I will be putting that into chat and in the recording. All right. So allow me devil's advocate.
Yeah.
And just know this is not what I'm thinking, but hey, lady, so what's the big deal? Famous person wore this, and now you're getting to benefit off of it, and you're going to be famous. So about this, with all the interviews, what's the fuss, lady?
You sound like a dude in a YouTube comment. I think that so many people were like, what's she complaining about? Who cares? Like, let's just, she got free promo. But I didn't really get free promo. If I didn't get traction from that post on Instagram, which had like 23,000 likes, which was 23,000 more than I normally get, that's where media picked up on my story. So it was part dumb luck and part good PR on my part to put my story out in a way that was really clear. That post talked about the origins. It had my story. It wasn't just like, wow, someone stole from me, which is also relevant rage when someone does that. But I was really thinking about, hey, if people are going to find me, this is what I want them to find. And I think for those people who are like, well, you know, like who cares? You still got something off of it. It still wasn't what it deserved. It wasn't like my brand was shown on Oprah's favorite things or something where it's me. It was Cara, and I had to chase behind her to try and reclaim my brand.
Yeah, it's you created something and somebody took it and claimed it for themselves at a fundamental level. That is theft. It could be my car, could be my bicycle, it could be my intellectual property. And ideas, ideas are labor, ideas are product, ideas are a thing, but it is not recognized as a thing, even when it's legally recognized. Oh, your Peg the Patriarchy is legally trademarked in Canada, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that also has limitations. You went through the hoops that you could with
Mhm.
the resources you have, because I happen to know that global trademarking is incredibly expensive and difficult.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, so your item is your thing, your creation has the legal backing of the Canadian government. But again, devil's advocate, doesn't that mean that the Canadian government will go and track down any unauthorized copies on their own?
Yeah,
No.
I really love this question because I think so many people don't understand when they were I was getting all kinds of challenges on my DMs or Twitter or all kinds of things around the Canadian trademark challenge. And trademark systems are set up to benefit people with money who can defend them. And so having a trademark in Canada was expensive on its own, but in order to trademark in the US, it was also thousands and thousands of dollars per category of things. So your apparel is a category. If you make a mug, that's a category. And even if I owned both trademarks or trademarks all over the world, when someone does something like what Cara did, I'd have to hire a lawyer and then I'd have to defend my trademark. So I'd have to have resources in order to fulfill those legal proceedings. And in a nerdy legal sense that I learned, because I did have to hire a lawyer to understand my roles or my rights or whether or not it was worth pursuing. There's also especially I think in California too, there's a state law around common use or common value around your brand. So basically, if you can demonstrate that you were using this in and selling to the market that is where the infringement is, then there's consideration at that level for your trademark, even without having a US specific trademark. I know that sounds confusing, but basically, if I submit something to Etsy for a seller that's in selling Peg the Patriarchy in California, Etsy would honor my trademark because I can demonstrate that I have it trademarked somewhere else. So for people looking to do their own trademarking, it's really important to consider, what other ways can you own this brand? Like, do you own the domain? Do you own all the social media properties for it? Do you own, e-commerce that you're selling with it on it? Because having the trademark just isn't enough for small business owners.
And the trademark owner has to go out and actively protect their brand. Is that correct?
Yes. So like Canada doesn't care. Trademark office doesn't even return my calls. There's like 5 people that work there. And so it's up to you to go and use the government documentation to say, hey, government of Canada recognizes my trademark, or the US trademark office recognizes my trademark. And then either negotiate with the person to person, the thief to you, or with the platform, or you may have to engage legal resources.
Mm. The case with Cara and the Met Gala, was this the first time that your brand was heisted, knowingly or unknowingly?
I did. I love that. I no, white people love to steal shit. So I've had so many
You mean like
people
Hawaii? You mean like the
like
entire,
Hawaii, yeah.
like the North American continent? Okay.
And I'll be very honest. I think I'd say this has been happening as soon as I created it. And you know, it's interesting to me the responses because I usually reach out artist to artist and I'm like, hey, I like what you created, but did you know that I actually own this trademark so you can't sell things with it on it? I'm like the nicest person in your DMs. And I'd say like 80% of people, and they're consistently white people, will write back with, well, how do I know that you own the trademark? Or can I see documentation? And I'm like, do you not Google? Just Google. Like you can see it's everywhere. That's probably how you found it. And so the other 20% are they totally understand. They're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. I wouldn't want someone doing that to me. So there's this creator empathy with most people, but this is not new. This is just on a greater scale now.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, would you mind if we looked at some of the questions from the attendees?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And let's see, I haven't sorted through this, so we're both going blind on this, y'all. Okay, so somebody said, how can we protect the work we're putting out from being plagiarized? Are there things we can do to protect it as we're putting it out, not just when we see somebody borrowing, stealing, or as I said, heisting?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. Sometimes I'm even afraid now to put things out because I'm like, someone's gonna steal it. So I'll tell you the sort of legal side of things or structures or systems you can use, and then kind of what I do. I think the process of trademarking, if you have the resources to do that, that's a great place to support yourself and to support your creation. If you are able to do some unofficial kind of ownership of the phrase or the thing that you're doing, getting the domain name, getting the social properties like your YouTube names or Twitter or whatever, that's also really helpful because it's showing that you're occupying through use. And what I do is I plan for this. I anticipate that people are gonna steal something. Meditate, medicate, masturbate. I put that out. It was trademarked. Some like white girl stoner account stole it and just like moved the word. So it was masturbate, medicate, meditate or something. And then I couldn't afford to trademark all variations of this thing. I didn't even think about that. So there's challenges between trademarking and copyright as well. So you might be copywriting something like lyrics or writing or something like that, and then trademarking is for sort of slogans or kind of short phrases. So just determining what you actually need. It's going to be impossible for you to copyright and trademark everything, but thinking about how you can like buff out whatever brand you're creating helps you just take up more space with your brand, even if someone is trying to steal it.
I want to pause at this moment and let folks know that neither of us are lawyers.
Yeah.
We're a couple of hardworking broads making the best we can and doing so honestly, right? So we're not lawyers. We're not giving legal advice. I feel like I legally have to say that,
Please
ironically.
do.
And this is based upon our experience and sharing the pains in. For those of you who are in California, I would recommend the California Lawyers for the Arts. And in the various areas that you are in or the countries you're in, you might want to look for, there are white hat lawyers out there, not just terrible lawyers, because there are amazing, good lawyers out there that volunteer their time to help people like us in the realms of art, in the realms of other aspects. So please look for them. And if you're not sure, ask other creatives around you. Somebody will have similar battles. So from California, the California Lawyers for the Arts. Okay. So that's my recommendation on it. Yeah, the copyright thing. Recently I came up with a new artwork and it's definitely copyable item. So I filed copyright as the first tiny little step. But thinking about all iterations, it's daunting. And then there's like, oh, here's one I hadn't thought of before when we were talking. It's a little more nefarious. It's kind of like the changing the word with the stoner chick you were talking about. My women's program, Fort FM, Women's Dominance Intensive. So I found a site, somebody else who's doing women and femme dominance training. I thought, great, fantastic. We need more different perspectives of it, right? So excited about that. So I go and check out the site. And then I'm like, wait, the program outline is identical. The phrasing is identical. And I reached out several times saying, hi, I'm happy you're doing this, but can you please not copy me? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Yeah. So that happened.
Wow.
So if you run across anything, y'all out there, that looks like Fort FM, it's not me. You'll know mine. It's very nerdy, mine. Oh, let's go for another question here.
That's awful. I'm so sorry that people are just lifting, like they're not even creative enough to like change it a little bit. I mean, your exact thing. That's so awful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, and we've got somebody else asked, how can we protect the work we're putting out from being, oh, wait, no, I answered that one. Never mind. Next one. How do we determine if someone has flat out stolen our work or if they're just doing something similar and might not have ever run into our work?
Yeah, I think that's the dilemma every time I have to approach somebody. So I approach with the kindness of, hey, I don't know if you know, here's some information. And a lot of times, I mean, Peg the Patriarchy is a little bit more straightforward, but I've had the same challenge as Midori, where people lifting my direct content from my website or my blog and I see it somewhere else. I actually took somebody's class that was like my exact agenda, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Oh,
So
I had that happen too.
really?
Yeah, around the history of Japanese rope bondage. I attended the class, I was excited. And then I'm like, wait,
No.
yeah,
I hope they saw your name. I hope they saw that you were there and they know what they did. I think sometimes people don't know if they're maybe I'm being a little bit petty here, but I feel like sometimes if you're not creative, if you're not creative with words specifically, you think that you've changed something and you've been inspired by somebody's work, which is awesome. I feel the same way that you do, that great, let's have more femdom perspectives and more workshops and things coming up. But it's a fine line, and then it's about what do you want from that. So if a small, I have people reaching out to me who are needle pointing, meditate, medicate, masturbate, and they want to sell it to their friend or something, and they're asking my permission, and I'm like, sure, like go ahead. Because I'm also considering what resources I'm going to put behind things. So you may want to think about that too. Are you going to be following up with everybody? What's the ultimate thing? I mean, some people can just block me and move on. So thinking, I guess, about like prioritizing, what's most important here? Is it someone who's super small that's stealing your stuff? Is it someone that has a platform? How much are you going to put into chasing them?
another question. Once we're certain someone has stolen our work, what can we do aside from getting lawyers involved? What's a kind way to reach out and have that conversation in good faith?
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I'm really angry as I'm writing this very kind email. So it's also okay to be upset about it. Like Midori said, it's straight up theft, and that feels not great. But usually I think reaching out and providing any kind of documentation right away. So I redact my personal information on my trademark, but I send a screenshot of the trademark and the domain for folks, just so they know, yeah, like this existed. If you Googled it, you would have found it. But I think reaching out with what you want. Do you want them to take it down? Do you want to find a way to collaborate? Do you want like affiliate off of what they're doing too? There's options other than, just don't use my art. Maybe you see an opportunity to partner in a way.
The partnering thing. Yeah. This wasn't started from a theft, just to be clear. Uh, Another artist colleague saw one of my profile photos and created, just on their own, created this lovely sketch of it, and just sent it to me as a, hey, here's something for you. And I'm like, oh my God, this is brilliant. Now I could have gone, that's a theft of my image, but what I and also I could have just taken their sketch and just used it on my own. So instead, what I did was I reached out and said, I really love this. Can I use it as some of my profile images, and how much? And since then, we've actually had this great relationship. Uh, Check out the work, Nadia Vanilla. See, a shout out, illustrating my upcoming book and stuff. And so it's formed a really, really great friendship and a colleague collaboration. Now, again, that one did not start with the theft at all. It started with inspiration and delight, but it could have easily, if we were two very different people. Yeah. Oh, here, let me, I think this
I
one you
love
have.
that story. I love that they're doing work for your book. That's amazing. What a cool
Oh,
opportunity both ways.
oh, and their illustrations fantastic, like representing all sorts of diversity in body and humans. Really lovely work.
I
Um,
love that. I
and
love
by Yeah, and that's another way to make collaborations happen. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of times it's oh, I didn't know.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
does a trademark apply worldwide? Somebody asked. Do you have to trademark in each individual country?
You have to trademark in each individual country. There is a world trademarking body that helps you do that. So it kind of puts everything in one database, but you still have to do it all individually, all individual fees and categories.
Yeah, and I can't imagine how much that would cost.
I have no idea. Like, yeah, more than a small business people can afford.
Wow. Uh, Another question here. What kind of questions can we ask ourselves to ensure that we are not borrowing or stealing someone else's work? Oh, great question. Sometimes I'm inspired and want to reference their work or concepts, but there's a line between just, this other person has this concept I learned and I'm sharing them with you here, versus going too far and using someone else's work for my own gain. Great question.
I love that. I think for me, when I see people quoting my work or being inspired, I know right away if I feel this is theft. And the how I know, and maybe this will help you kind of think about your approach to it, is that one, they haven't really added anything new to it. So if you say, oh, Luna has been talking about pegging the patriarchy, and now let's talk about, like, I don't know, like, we need a matriarchy word, something like that, and kind of riffs off of the same subversive idea. Great. But I oftentimes will see people, especially on
I
Instagram,
have an idea. How about this one? Plush the patriarchy.
flush the patriarchy. That sounds too soft and cuddly.
Okay, but that would be an example, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, okay, let's go with that. Flush the patriarchy. I think that when there's no credit, so, or the credit is sneaky. So oftentimes people will credit in captions instead of directly on the image. And we all know, we're scrolling when we're sharing, that caption is not being carried with it. So it loses the original author content. I think making it obvious that you're borrowing an idea, that this person said this, and it made me think, or I wanted to do this. When you're inspired, let's say you go to one of Midori's classes and you think, oh, I want to teach femdoming too. Think about, well, what's unique about you? What's unique about your experience, your perspective, your values, and how are you taking some of the foundational skills that you got from Midori and then using that to create something that is an expression of your understanding to this content.
Nice. Yeah, it's the aspect of inspiration versus appropriation. Inspiration versus appropriation. And that happens in the realm of beyond just slogans and object branding.
Mm-hmm.
And fashion is certainly an industry that's rife with both inspiration and, well, theft, cultural theft. Another attendee asked, is it a good idea to trademark the name of your company?
Ooh, I think it depends how you're using it. So Luna Matatas is my name, and then there's it's also my brand. It's also the name of the business. So for me, that's useful. If you have your brand and then maybe, or your company, and then you've got multiple brands under it, if you can afford to trademark everything, if you have to pick and choose, trademark the product brands instead. That would be my instinct. But again, we're not lawyers. You know, you might want to consult with someone about that.
I've got somebody who would like to voice in their query.
Sure.
So I'm going to invite them.
Hi there. A quick question. Once your trademark was violated, I was wondering what could have the people, the Met or the designer, or even Kara, the moderator herself, have done to take responsibility and address that mistake.
Ooh, yeah. They could have prevented it by just giving me a shout out, I think, or reaching out beforehand and creating a collaboration, like big white rich designer and, you know, fat queer POC person, sex educator. That would have been an awesome, you know, way to collaborate. But afterwards, it would have been so easy to just say, yeah, this is how I interpreted it and thought about it, and here's another perspective from Luna Matatas, because we need all kinds of perspectives for dismantling the patriarchy. It could have shown up as solidarity, it could have shown up as allyship, and everyone would have kind of forgot about the theft part. But I think with like David and Goliath kind of, you know, energies, it's really, they can just do whatever they want. They just waited for the news cycle to change, basically.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, on the phrase "peg the patriarchy," it created quite a buzz and all sorts of different interpretations.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about that, because your intention versus the Twitterverse interpretation.
Twitter is mean. It is a mean place. But yeah, we can totally talk about that. So Peg the Patriarchy for me, when I created it, was about this idea of using the concept of pegging, which was created by Dan Savage and his readers, to give a title, a name, a nuance to heterosexual men that wanted to have strap-on sex with their, you know, cis heterosexual partner. So it was queering heterosexual sex for cis men to deal with this internalized homophobia around things up their butt. And so the act of pegging is challenging a lot of these ideas. And one day I was high and luckily I had, you know, my little like notepad around, and I was thinking about sex and equity. And I was thinking, wow, you know, we like patriarchy, and I was just rolling about patriarchy. And the idea of pegging the patriarchy is very much about subverting a system. And I think the Twitterverse, you know, I want to preface this by saying I think we need all kinds of ideas to dismantle the patriarchy. I don't have the one idea. I think there are so many different ways that I may not agree with, but I'm in solidarity with you if you are anti-patriarchy. The Twitterverse sort of felt that the patriarchy was personified. So it was a person, and so we're using. There were two things I think that they were really upset about. So one was that it was seen as violent, so that we're going to peg someone up the ass, like Kara talked about, in a way that was punishing or powerful. So one, the patriarchy is a system. It's not a person, and pegging is only pegging if it's consensual. If it's not consensual, it's assault. So that one I didn't really relate to. There were other ones around talking about reinforcing gender norms reinforcing heteronormative kind of ideas about sex, that penetration is power. And yeah, that's the society we live in. That's what patriarchy says. And so for me, pegging the patriarchy is busting that idea. It's saying, no, it doesn't have to, we don't have to live in this system. We don't have to be submissive, obedient, little patriarchs in this system. We can actually subvert it and create something that is more pleasurable, that is more liberating for ourselves.
And how much flack did you get on people's misinterpretation of it?
Well, the internet, they love a good comment section. I was okay with the debate, actually, because I learned about these other angles to it, and I was like, yeah, I could see that is a problem too in patriarchy. What I didn't like, and I just tuned straight out of, there were comments about my body, there was fat phobia, there was people diagnosing me with internalized queer phobia. There were all these things that were really about my person. And I think when we're in community, we're all trying to get out of these oppressive systems. It doesn't mean that we're all going to agree. We have a pluriverse of these ideas, and so it was just kind of gross for me to see attacks on my person.
So let's dive into that part, that as a not just a small business owner, but queer, BIPOC, fat.
Yeah.
And what impact do you feel that has on, well, the exploitability? Because would this have happened? How differently might this have happened all through if this were a straight white guy? What does our identity have? How does it impact the initial theft, the post-theft reaction by the thief, as well as the social perspective on it?
Yeah. Oh, good question. Well, I think even your comment that sounded like a dude on YouTube, the devil's advocate, I think about how they would have responded to a white cis man, defending his company, defending his brand. They would have, cheered him on. And there's this idea of immediate submissiveness for the identities that I hold. And so anything outside of that, be small, be nice, be pleasant, just go along to get along, what's the big deal, is seen as rebellious, is seen as violent.
Oh, wait. Uppity.
I'm sorry?
Uppity.
Uppity. Yes, uppity. Absolutely. I'm a diva about this or something. I mean, my glasses indicate I am a diva, but there was all of this extra pressure because I was someone that is occupying in it, or these identities in this body. So I think prior, there already might have been an interest when Dior's team Googled this and came up with it. They might have said, oh, this other thin white person with blonde hair or something, or who looks like what we want to represent through Kara's feminism, let's partner with her. It'll look like we are we're celebrating, you know, sisterhood or something like that. So the difference is that when brands also go out looking for trends, or they go out looking for partnerships, they're looking for what they already create and reinforce as a hierarchy of bodies, gender, style, color, all these kinds of things. So that means that all the Black creators on TikTok are creating all these awesome dances, but as soon as, you know, a thin young white woman does it, then all of a sudden brands and Spotify want to go behind her. So we see this play out in so many different ways. I think there's also more kind of general sympathy for when things happen to white women, which is a tool of white supremacy. There's a value of maintaining their comfort, and there's an entitlement to comfort. And as a BIPOC person, I immediately was like, I'm gonna have to fight this thing. I don't have any money. Like, people are gonna call me fat. You know, I already knew these experiences because I'd lived them in different ways.
Mm-hmm. I am tired about this. And I did, when I approached you about talking about this on Consent Dojo, I was like thinking, is this just going to add to your exhaustion? I hope it's okay that we're talking about this, or, you know, am I just like, I don't know, re-traumatizing you?
Yeah, I need to book an appointment with my therapist right now. No, this is great because this is a supportive environment. Me getting to tell my story and be affirmed, you know, it's amazing. Thank you.
And you're welcome. And thank you for sharing. Now, the exhaustion from it, and it's been going on for quite some time now, but there were aspects of it that had been happening before, around understanding that because of who we are, that we don't have access to things. But all right, so this happened, it's exhausting. What was your self-care? What did you do to take care of yourself? What do you wish you could have done to take care of yourself? What
Oh
did
my
you need?
God. Oh my gosh, Midori, I have the best friends in the whole entire world. My friends were at my house helping me package all the orders for shirts that came in, because I'm just one person managing the website and the media and the social media and the Twitter and the everything. And I just remember feeling so loved by my friends, and also thinking, damn, I wish I had money to hire people. And I think a big part of the self-care that week, that especially as soon as it blew, I had to take care of my body. And I was at the computer for like 8-12 hours a day doing interviews or responding to things. So I made sure I would take time to, like, literally just lie on the floor. I have an acupressure mat. You know, I was doing anything that was tiny self-care. The other thing I needed to do was I stopped responding where it wasn't going to be nourishing. So when I talk to media, that's nourishing for me because my story's going out into the platform. When I argue with someone on Twitter, what was that doing? Is not doing. So that was a little bit of, you know, your ego wants to go out there, but yeah, I had to let that go. And then the third thing was that we have such good people in our sex ed community. I mean, people like Dirty Lola and Dr. Lex, like Marla, all these people were also helping me by amplifying the truth about Peg the Patriarchy through their channels and checking in on me. And so I think it's now I realize the importance of, when you see someone going through this thing, even just sending them a message and letting them know that you see them, you see what's happening, it's wrong, was it meant so much to me.
Good. So that's something that we can do when we see somebody being shat on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and Marla, I've had on Consent Dojo, and Dirty Lola's coming on next month. Next
Oh
month.
my gosh. Oh my gosh, I get to be in the sandwich. Great.
Yes. Yeah, to have that moral support. Now, okay. So, do you have a Patreon? I can't remember.
No.
Okay. Well, if you ever want to do a Patreon, talk to me. I'll help you out.
Okay.
For me, my Patreon supporters know that that's one of the places where online I am finding support, community, as well as just nourishment, because it's not Twitter, because it's people who believe in the work I do. And I have this, surprisingly, I didn't know that this would happen, that kind of an emotional intimacy with people who oftentimes I've never met except for tiny little squares. Um, and to have similarly, they're not showing up to pack my t-shirts, but that I can talk about the frustrations. So there are corners online, but Twitter ain't it.
Mm-mm. Neither
Hmm.
is Reddit.
Yeah.
I love
Mm.
that you described that emotional intimacy. Did that come right away, or did it take time for people to kind of meld into the membership and then feel comfortable to like connect with you in
Well,
that way?
it took a while, and it wasn't because of the subscribers, or what I call the citizens of Planet Midori, to warm up to me, but it was me warming up to the and understanding how Patreon could be of use to me. That I was originally treating it more like a blog post, and I had to, have nice finished product posting out and provide a thing, as opposed to I'm now treating it as key to my virtual studio.
Ooh.
So come on by, see what I'm making, sit down for tea, what's going on with everyone. Oh my God, I'm having a really hard time with this thing, or I'm having a great time. So it was me changing how I use that platform to make it nice for everyone. And I think the key word here is nice. I mean, sometimes people come looking for like sexy, explicit rope bondage pictures. They're not going to get that. They're going to get me, you know? So, ah,
Do they ever get your cats? Or your cats ever on
oh
there?
my God, totally. Let's see, none of my cats, it's cat o'clock right now, which means they're sitting in the sun napping. So I don't have any of my cats today. Uh, damn it, they're shirking their duty. Somebody writes, what's a good way of confronting appropriation in person?
Ooh.
Oh, and then somebody else, especially Shibari culture vampires. And uh, I have written articles around many articles around cultural misappropriation and Orientalism in rope bondage. Folks can check that out. But I'm going to expand this to any sort of cultural vampirism, because that exists, and to confront that. Now, there's the first issue of, and kind of like, you reaching out to other artisans saying, hey, maybe you didn't realize. I think a lot of times on the stuff that I know of, it's not out of malice or outright racism or uh, intentional exploitation or plagiarism. Oftentimes, usually in the stuff I'm seeing, especially around Japanese culture and Japanese sexuality, including but not limited to shibari, is that they had somebody tell them who presented themselves with authority.
Mm.
So for me, it's more the, hey, did you know? So, but sometimes it is around cultural and white supremacy. And sometimes it is a grabbing at status.
Mm.
And I don't, so confronting, I don't confront, I converse.
Mm.
And then in the conversation, I'll realize if it's somebody that well-meaning and just didn't know. Okay, fine. Okay, let me share some stuff with you. But those who are intentionally exploiting, I can talk to them, I can confront them, but what's the likelihood that they're actually going to do jack about it? Like Dior,
Yeah.
like Kara. And she could have said, oh, hey, let me introduce you to the source of my inspiration. That's still kind of weaselly, but at least doing something.
Totally. I would have been okay with that.
Yeah. And yet she didn't. So I do find that the intentional exploiters, yeah. Anyhow, that's my experience. And not just around this stuff, but all sorts of cultural or creative theft.
Yeah. Well, I was just picturing you in that environment and, having to say like, hey, like this is like, did you know this was culturally appropriating, or did you know that? And I think there's also something different about the bodies that you and I occupy versus like, another cis white man at the rope dojo saying, hey, did you know this is a thing? Like, have you thought about these implications? Because I hesitate sometimes, and also because I'm a chicken shit in person, but I also hesitate because I don't want to do a replication of that white supremacist patriarchal power. I don't want to have power over somebody else. I want to provide knowledge, and ultimately I have to let go of, which is what I had to do with Peg the Patriarchy, was let go of what the outcome was going to be, and then just control what I could control. And that's sometimes hard to do. I mean, there's only one rope institute in Toronto, and Toronto's so diverse, but this place is not. I did not feel comfortable there, and I even tried to take friends and of color and go with me, but there's just a particular vibe that I wasn't comfortable with. So am I going to go and tell them, hey, you should have a diversity and equity board, and maybe I can help? I don't care. I'm going to create my own rope thing in Toronto. So I'm not sure. I
Tell me
don't
when
have a
that's
good answer
happening.
on it. I'm sorry.
Tell me when that happens.
Ooh, I totally will.
Something that helped me in similar situation, I guess. So talking about the cultural appropriation and or well-intended misunderstanding. For those of you who know my stuff, and you've certainly heard me talk about this, especially in the race and kink talks.
Mhm.
I've been talking about Orientalism and just feeling like, well, for like 25 years, and feeling like I've been shouting into the wind.
Yeah.
But what made the change actually were other people with a pre-existing platform. What do I mean by that? Zoe with Spectrum Boutique heard me talking about this privately and said, write an essay, I'll put it in my site. Ropecraft, hearing me talking about the exoticization of Asian femme bodies in kink subculture, and said, hey, how about we put up a panel and discuss this? Sunny Megatron with Zipper magazine inviting me to write deeply nerdy articles, and various other publications that have, and increasingly journalists who are more socially sophisticated, and many of them are non-binary and women and BIPOC, who are finding that not all the sources seem right, and start asking around. So viewers, if you have a platform existing where such things could be discussed or shed light upon, don't just leave it to the person who's trying to do the cultural work and the creative work. And yeah, texting them or writing them and saying, hey, I see you, is good. If you have a platform, even super good if you say, hey, come on my thing and talk about it. So that's something, boy, that happening over the last few years. And it's certainly between Me Too, Black Lives Matter, and Stop Asian Hate, I am finding more platforms, journalists, writers, and media that wants to have a more diverse and civil and humane perspective.
I think so too. I think the amount of like media requests or podcasts who are outside of my sphere of like the go-to ones have been just looking for different and diverse voices.
Yeah, and I think this too has much to do with I have so much hope for the young activist generation.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the media savviness and understanding that there's and and the young and radical politicians,
Mhm.
yeah, making changes happen. Uh, Turning it back to the attendees in the audience, would love to know any further questions for either of us, or if you have a similar story to tell of your stuff being heisted, please share with us. Now, I want to turn to something more, well, on the bright side. Tell us about products of Peg the Patriarchy and merch we can buy and stuff we can do.
Yes to all the things. One of the things that what you said about the having a big platform, I thought, yeah, even the people who, like someone mentioned in the chat, were tagging me every time they saw it, they were going and arguing in comments on my behalf. And I felt so loved by these rando strangers on the internet that felt so passionately about this theft. And excuse me, and they're, a lot of them were attracted to the merch, and some people were more attracted to the idea. But the merch actually started with the tank tops. I wore it to one Toronto Pride in 2015, and so many people asked me to make them one on the street that I was like, okay, yeah. And being a crafter, I thought, cool, people are gonna buy my art for $10 or whatever silly thing I was not calculating profit for at that time. But now I've expanded, so I have these beautiful sex toy storage bags that hold a ton of stuff that say Peg the Patriarchy on them. There's stickers. People send me pictures with the stickers on their car bumper and or their helmets or things like that, or water bottles. There's mugs, there's totes, there's hoodies. The hoodies are so cozy. So there's so many things up on the site. And I didn't do this before, but I just thought of this, so I will create a discount code for all of you lovely Consent Dojo fans, and it'll be Midori, and so stay tuned, I'll set it up for you.
I mean, just my name is a discount code.
Yeah, you're the prize.
Oh,
You're the prize.
oh, that's great. Thank you. And you'll go out, buy things that are Peg the Patriarchy. I wonder about Peg the Patriarchy branded dildos.
Oh my God, are you like reading the future? I will leave a teaser about, let's say, that might come true.
And if it might come true, it's been documented in this, which will end up in YouTube, dated and tagged.
Yes, we're documenting right here live.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. It would be so much fun to keep growing the brand.
My pervy mind is like thinking like, oh, do I have something to draw on here? Okay.
Oh yes, please send me all of your designs. Send me all of your dream pegging dildos.
Okay, so
I mean, it's like me getting dick pics, but in a different way.
yeah.
With consent, I'm inviting you to do it.
Okay, pardon the chicken scratch. So, it could be like,
It's beautiful.
hey, babe, tonight, maybe just to the R, maybe the CH, or Go all the way to the first P, baby. Go all the way to the first P.
Give it to me deep with the first P.
Yeah. Bury the patriarchy deep inside of me, baby.
Ooh, we have all the taglines. It's quite a block of a dildo. It's like pretty serious about it.
I know my friends.
You know your audience.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Somebody said as a bottom that might inspire me to role play the patriarchy more.
I love that.
Oh my God. Oh, it's now been documented.
Yep.
Mhm.
Saw it here first.
Yep. Oh, I can just see like some conference or something, or like a kink conference where, you know, one uh one person says to the other, let's discuss the patriarchy tonight. As you know, code.
Discuss. How deep do you want to discuss it though, babe?
I think this is a very deep conversation.
It might be hard and deep.
Very hard. Yeah. And
You turn this into Dirty Talk Dojo.
double entendres are us. You know, that's part of our strategy, right? It's like if we can't laugh about it, there are too many things that hurt.
Yes. Yes. If we can't giggle that joy, what are you going to do? I could have been crying all the time about it. And, you know, there were times where I was so stressed I did, but there was also this, sometimes I'd sit there and be like, what is my life that my pegging feminist thing ended up at the Met Gala? Like my parents were like, what are you talking about? Like, what happened? So yeah, I mean, there's definitely joy in it. And I met so many people. I mean, my following obviously increased because of my reach. And so now there's all these cool people that I wouldn't have been connected to had I not had this theft platform.
I am so appreciative of your positive look at this, because I know that it's also been really shitty too. And yet you can see the laughter in it, and you can see the people and the connection and the surrealism of it. Yeah, that is, as marginalized people, humor becomes a coping mechanism.
Yes.
And that's also part of like the in-group comedy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I could easily DM you and be like, guess what got stolen again? And you know, yeah, there'd be empathy, but there'd also be like this eye roll kind of humor around it.
Mm-hmm. Ah, but enough with that, you know? I mean, it's a coping mechanism, but can we just not have to deal with this all the time?
That would be better. That would be better.
Now, what advice, or what do you want people watching this, whether in real time or later on, to keep in mind around consent and intellectual property as they go along in their daily life? Because not everyone's going to be somebody that's creating a thing. Some might be. But what do you want people to take away into their everyday?
Yeah, I think this is going to sound kind of more like poetry than like tangible, but I think that whatever you create is always yours. Like I feel Peg the Patriarchy is mine no matter how many times I see it, you know, replicated somewhere else, because I grew it, I put intention behind it, I put it out into the world. And the credit for that is important, but there's also this, you know, I will keep creating. I'm going to make something else that somebody's going to steal. I'm going to keep putting new things out there. So there's this part, this, understanding kind of the lay of the land. There's an acceptance around that. And then there's also this part of me that, has really learned through all this process to think about myself and my own resources. So what is best for me? What am I going to dedicate stress to? What am I not going to dedicate stress to? And as a small business owner, you want to protect everything, or an artist, you want to protect everything. And even for people who are not creating, when you see these kinds of things happen, I mean, there's part allyship around it. And there's also, kind of understanding what people are upset about from the people that are experiencing it. It's easy to sit, in the cheap seats and say, oh, well, trademarks are stupid anyways. Why does she care? If it hasn't happened to you, it's either a learning experience for you or pass it on by. And, I hope that we end up developing just more solidarity, even in our small communities, around this kind of stuff, because the debates are important intellectually, but there were real consequences for me financially, stress-wise, health-wise, and what I think protecting each other and supporting each other is such a that's the point of community. That's why we want to have each other's back.
So much about consent, intellectual property as well, but all of consent comes under compassion
Yes.
and being a part of the human species, to have empathy and compassion, right? So much of it is about, and for like the Twitterverse, outrage does spike the dopamine. But man, there are so many other ways, good ways to spike a dopamine, rather than shit talking online to people who you got no business shit talking to. Like, go jack off or something. What was it? Meditate, medicate, masturbate. Yeah. So somebody said, Luna, so lovely to hear you speak. I've followed you for a long time, but haven't been to one of your workshops, and I'm inspired by how deep you're thinking about all this. Thank you.
Ooh, thank you.
Luna with 3 heart emojis.
Oh, thank you for the love. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Got a few minutes left. Want to tell us about stuff that's coming up that we should be paying attention to?
Oh my gosh, yes. So Marla and I are doing our kink intensive, kinky tapas. We are going to be doing it in the fall, so in October in Portland. So we're going to be on your side of the time zone, and it's a small group, and we are practicing in a dungeon. So it's great for beginners. It's great for if you're intermediate, but you want to learn psychological BDSM or get some practice or be in a group. It's also BIPOC centered, but everyone's welcome to attend. So BIPOC centered means that we're going to be teaching from a decolonial perspective around gender and race. So if you're into that, you can come to Kinky Tapas. And for me, I teach about 35 webinars online. They're all on demand. I don't know how I got this many topics, but there's so many interesting things, especially around kink. And so I have a couple of new ones that are up right now. There's Dirty Talk for Submissives, Fantasies of Force. So if you're into things like ravagement, and oh my god, what's my new Dirty Talk for Dominance. So you got some, we were going at it with the Dirty Talk Dojo. It's inspired all my webinars, so we've got those out there. And I'm gonna be at a couple of erotic arts festivals in the US. So maybe I'll see you at something, Midori. Maybe we'll be at something together. But you can check my website for all those dates.
And another person wrote, just took your Fantasies of Force, and it was so great.
Thank you. I'm so glad. I've been wanting to teach that forever. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
What other live events or in-person events will you be at? There's the Kinky Tapas.
Yes. I'm going to be in Rochester at the Rochester Erotic Arts Festival this month. I'll be at Sex Down South in Atlanta in September. Are you going to be there? Yay!
I'll be there. Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. Okay, yay. Yes. Okay. Oh, I'm so excited. There's going to be so many good people there. Amazing. And then I'm doing some live events in Toronto and Ottawa. So a couple in Canada. Oh, and Calgary. So I'll be in a few different places, a few different time zones.
Wow. Atlanta, Calgary, Portland, Rochester, you're hitting all of it. And
All
that's
over the place. Yeah.
another person wrote, thank you so much for hosting this event. Thank you, Midori, so much for hosting the event. Also, always great to listen to you speak, Luna. There you go.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Feeling the love in your community, Midori. Thank you for having me.
I've really been enjoying Consent Dojo. It was an experiment at the beginning, and um, I wouldn't be able to do this without the support of my Patreon, because this is obviously free to the world, and I make it a webinar so that way we have civility and kindness in the room, and that way we don't get all the Twitterverse in here. And so, yeah, we have good dialogue. But yeah, again, if not for Patreon support, I wouldn't be able to do these sort of conversations and dive deeper. I am learning so much in the 2 years of Consent Dojo. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, and I am looking forward to crossing paths with you. Now, final chance for anyone out there with questions, or better still, words of appreciation for our beautiful guest. Let's see. Uh, I know one other person who is writing. Excellent. Yeah. And on that note, I'm going to close this webinar, and next month, looking forward to seeing you all again. And you can check this out in YouTube. So check it out there. And everyone out there, go out and practice your consent muscles. You got to keep using it. You got to keep using it. It takes great practice, a lot of fun practice to be a great human being. So go out and build your consent muscles.